All right, let's get to the bottom of the Occupy Wall Street thing. So if the anger, we know it is palpable, the passion is undeniable, but the message so far is inscrutable.
In Occupy Wall Street!
In Occupy Wall Street! In Occupy Wall Street!
We have...
So the Occupy Wall Street movement entered its fourth week just today, and what began in Lower Manhattan has spread across the country. Thousands gathering in cities to march, to chant, calling for, well, it's kind of hard to nail down.
We have a lot of anger built up, and we don't feel that our needs are being met.
We're specifically complaining about the bailouts that the banks got.
I'm about to get my PhD, and I have very little job prospects.
Corporate lobbyists owning all of our politicians.
This is like a performance art piece, the corporate zombie march.
I don't think there's ever going to be one set demand from this movement.
All right, so that's the most common knock against the Occupy Wall Street movement, that it has its lack of a cohesive message. That's what the critics say about it. And that's why we invited Tyler Kumbelik. He's a media rep for the movement. Thank you so much for coming on. We know you're very busy tonight. So listen, you're getting a lot of comparisons to the Tea Party here. I'm sure you've heard them. If you boil down the Tea Party's message to one thing, it's no taxes. Or if you want to say two things, it's smaller government, right? So can you do the same with the Occupy Wall Street movement right now, Tyler?
In a way, we can. It's active democracy, and everyone has a voice in government. Those are the two messages that we're really trying to resonate.
Okay, thank you. Everyone has a voice and active democracy. So what changes specifically are you asking for?
I don't think we're asking for specific changes from government yet or from the financial sector yet. I think we're trying to broaden the discussion base first. We're trying to represent 99% of the country that's felt disenfranchised over the last 5 years because of the recession. And what we think is more important right now is to make every American feel like their voice matters again, and to be willing to express their opinions and talk to their congresspeople, talk to all of society about what they think should be the changes to happen. Okay,
so you said to talk to their congresspeople, but I've got to ask you this then. So if you want to talk and listen, you know, free to demonstrate, to protest, that's part of being an American. Can you do that, though, when you see people arrested, you know, no matter whose fault it is, whether it's the Occupy Wall Street people or the police's fault? Can you achieve what you want talking to your congressman by doing that?
I think we've developed a system in this country where the corporate economy and corporate influence on government has become so great where you can't just talk to your congressman. You can't just expect to have your one vote matter as much as the lobbyist or the corporation that gives thousands of dollars to political campaigns. And so going to the street, gathering together, is the best way to let government know that the people matter first.
Okay, so talk to your congressman, but then also do other things. Protest if you want. Take to the streets, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. A lot of supporters specifically online have criticized the media for not covering this or not understanding this. But unless you reach a certain threshold with a clear message, I mean, do you merit the attention? Because now I think, obviously, most people think you merit the attention. But in the beginning, the media got a lot of criticism when there were protests in New York City and other cities that were bigger than the Occupy Wall Street movement. Do you understand that now?
We understood that it was going to be very hard to have this message resonate with most media, most press in this country when we first started. That's why we created our own media system internally with Twitter and Facebook and using social media to get the message out. And we were upset at first that media wasn't covering us, but as we grew, we realized we garnered more coverage, we garnered more respect because we showed lasting power.
Gotcha. Okay. Mayor Michael Bloomberg criticized the Occupy protesters, saying they're trying to destroy jobs for working people in the city. What do you say to that?
He also said that we need to not be criticizing the banks because the banks are hurting as well. It's a little hard to take him at his word at this point. He hasn't really represented all of New Yorkers here. The fact that there's thousands and thousands of us out on the street and he's not really recognizing that we're a movement, and we should be heard by New York politicians.
Okay, just for the sake of time, I want to get to this. I don't mean to cut you off. Do you worry about politicians or other figures co-opting your message? I want to play something for you. It's Republican presidential candidate Newt Gingrich. Listen and we'll talk about it.
You're going to see more protest, and it's really a tribute to the absolute failure of Obama's economic policy that somebody who was elected by the left now has the left rebelling and demonstrating and arguing against his policy.
So is Newt Gingrich right here? Is this movement actually a rebuke of President Obama?
I think this entire protest is a rebuke of government, and that includes the right and the left. They've not come together, not come to compromise on anything, and there's a reason why there's a 13% congressional approval rate in this country.
Tyler Kimbellic, thank you. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me on.
Now, whether or not you agree with the Occupy Wall Street protest, one thing's certain, it's attracting a colorful group. And if you've been watching scenes from the movement in New York, well, you have noticed a certain white-suited preacher. He is firing up the crowd, a preacher man.
They'll shut down public space as much as they can. Right. But they don't know. They don't know what shape our Tahrir Square will take.
Well, that's Reverend Billy Talon on the first day of the protest in Manhattan 3 weeks ago. He is a fixture among the protesters, but he's not your typical preacher. He's part comedian, part performance artist, and part anti-consumerism activist. And I asked him if there is a cohesive message here, or are they just making it up as they go along?
The demands on the Occupy Wall Street website are a live document that are in development every day. But from the very beginning, Occupy Wall Street has been very precise. It's been specific. We are occupying public space with our bodies. And as we said in the clip, the 5 freedoms of the First Amendment, speech, worship, press, peaceable gathering, and protest, they are being exercised there in Liberty Plaza. And it is having a tremendous impact. There we are in the shadow of these 65-story Wall Street banks. And people are just joining up. They understand in their common sense what it's about.
Boil down the message for me then, Reverend. Boil down the message for me.
The banks, the big banks and the big corporations have corrupted our democracy. And we're starting democracy over in Occupy Wall Street. We're sitting in circles. It's consensus. You can talk. You can listen. We're learning how to practice democracy live. And it's amazing how joyous it feels.
And I think that it's okay then to say we don't have one cohesive message, that this is democracy, a living democracy in action, and that we're learning every day. There's nothing wrong with that. So then why not just say that? Just say we're upset with Wall Street, we're upset with the big banks, and this is a democracy in action. And so maybe we don't have a clear message here, but we're learning every day. What's wrong with that? You're the first person I've heard say that.
You know, what you're saying is true, but occupying Wall Street is precise. And embodying your democracy, coming down and being with us, bringing your skill with us. And we've got many tasks. We've got feeding, we've got making media, we've got education, we've got direct action, we've got parades. We've got a lot of work to do. Come down and join us. The era of the online petition is over. Now it's a revolution.
And just in case you're wondering, Reverend Billy is in fact a real reverend. He leads the Church of Earth Illusia and the Stop Shopping Gospel Choir.